April 18 Indian Express news article. Let us see in this video. First article that we are going into is related to Mauritius PM arrives on 8-day visit. Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Kumar Jugnauth is in India on 8-day visit beginning Sunday to strengthen ties between the two countries in both economics as well as strategic sector, especially in maritime security. Mauritius is an important economic partner for India. In recent years, its importance on strategic sphere has increased. India has been one of the largest trading partner and exporter of goods and services to Mauritius since 2007. India's export to Mauritius are largely of petroleum products, especially petroleum. Besides petroleum products, main items of Indian exports to Mauritius are pharmaceuticals, cereals, cotton, shrimps, prawns, frozen boneless bovine meats. Main items of Mauritius exports to India are vanilla, instruments, apparatus for medical surgical sciences, needles, aluminium alloys, and alloys among others. India has extended a $353 million to Mauritius in May 2016 as a special economic package for 5 priority projects, of which social housing project was the last to be completed. 190 million line of credit to Mauritius for Metro Express and other social infrastructure project, MOU on implementation of small development projects. In March, Mauritius became a member of Colombo Security Conclave, grouping of India, Sri Lanka and Maldives. The grouping of NSA from these countries work for regional security by focusing on areas such as maritime security, countering terrorism, combating transnational crime and cyber security. Next article that we are moving into is related to fatal friendship. China's economic intervention has proved disastrous for Myanmar, Sri Lanka and Pakistan. Myanmar, China's closest neighbor with a long history of cross-border trade, was the first country to voluntarily turn towards Beijing. Beijing reassured the general of its continued support and in 1989 signed a treaty of trade and cooperation that made China the whole supporter of illegitimate military government. The discontent in Myanmar continued against the military governments leaning towards China until the internal situation exploded in 2007 with the full brutal military crackdown. Myanmar has a creditable human development index rating earlier, diversified trade with outside world, but the strong eastern sanctions after 2007 made China virtually its sole trading partner. Wood alone accounts for about 70% of Myanmar's export to China. It's clear that China is stripping bare Myanmar's century-old teak forest. Pakistan is a country that started well in 1947, being allotted that is probably the world's largest man-made irrigation system in Punjab, and a thriving international harbour at Karachi. Once it was touted as a progressive country, the visitors arrived from South Korea to study its economic model. Internationally, it played its card well, receiving military aid in plenty from US, later on from China. China was signed in 1963 immediately after India's border defeat. It would not incorrect to say that it would not be incorrect to say that Pakistan's internal dynamics and external policy have been influenced by its enmity with India, which became the core of army's history and discontinued its role in politics. The growing radicalization of Pakistan was set in motion during the reign of General Zia, who truly Islamized an already Muslim country. Of course, the states was used by US to create the Taliban to fight the Russians in Afghanistan and then dumped in 2001 when the US attacked Afghanistan. In the year 2012 was defining moment for Pakistan when it launched a military operation against the terror and signed on to China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, would lead to a major People's Liberation Army expansion into Indian Ocean through Gwadar. The Chinese investment went to heads of Pakistan's leading, especially Imran Khan, who started its political career as CPEC skeptic. CPEC project unveiled by Xi Jinping in 2015 is China's flagship project in the Belt and Road Initiative, but the cost ballooned from $46 billion to $62 billion for the opaque reason. In turn, Pakistan would be China's gateway to Islamic world. Pakistan's own government has accused CPEC of overcharging a random project by $3 billion. Next, blessed with human development indices, second only to Japan's in Asia. Apple, in the form of Mahendra Rajapakse, a poisoned apple. But as in the paradise, there was a devil with a poisoned apple in the form of Mahinda Rajapakse, who insisted on a port in his constituency, Hambantota. Against all economic survey and advices, the port was built. It floundered, and Sri Lanka transferred the land as equity to China for 99 years, reminiscent of the deal struck by East India Company. From 2012 to 2016, China accounted for 30% of all FDI to Sri Lanka, becoming the top source of foreign investment. Today, China is funding 50 projects in the country involving more than $1 billion, including Colombo Port and Lakvijaya thermal power plant. There is a strong rumor that projects are padded for corrupt reasons, so that these Chinese loans are accepted at 6.5% interest, as against 2.5% from ADB, that is Asian Development Bank. As in the case of Myanmar, China earned the goodwill of Colombo government by supporting it during civilian war and using it as veto to block the UN sanctions. Next article is lopsided rule. Confidentiality ring amendment creates opacity in antitrust dispute. Competition Commission of India has realized that disputes arising out of antitrust matters, also known as competition or cartelization, require confidentiality. The problem that arises is in the Commission's investigation under Section 3, 4, 5 of the Competition Acts are germane to suo motu powers given to the Director General of the Commission, which have now extended towards establishing the opaque confidentiality ring. Next article that we are moving into is related to when the judiciary stand up. The Supreme Court of Kenya, Pakistan have had their own KHR Kanna moments. They have upheld constitutional values against the executive excess. The Kenya case relates to the initiative of executive known as Building Bridges Initiative, BBI for short, to pass a law to make major changes to 2010 constitution. Supreme Court of Kenya nullified the election of the president because the process was seen to be compromised and beset by irregularities. There are 4 factors to explain this boldness of the court. First is the quality of the law itself. When the law is clear about the necessary constraints on the executive, then arriving at such ruling is less difficult. Second, when the political elites in the country, both within the house and in the other institutions, publicly question the actions of the executive, and the courts are emboldened because they now have important public allies. Third, when there is a robust public disclosure about the unconstitutionality of executive decision, the court carries the burden of reversing the declining legitimacy of the constitutional order. Max Weber, the eminent German social theorist, in a seminal essay titled Politics as a Vocation, laid down 3 qualities necessary for a politician with a vocation. They must have a vision, patience, and sense of responsibility. I believe judges too must have the same qualities: vision to imagine the future that the Constitution envisaged for the country, the patient to see themselves as a custodian of the constitutional values, and a sense of responsibility that makes them fair regulators of arrogant politics. Next article that we are moving into is related to holding Moscow to account. Loopholes in international law will make it difficult to hold Russia accountable for Ukraine war. Diplomacy sanctions appears the better bet. Laws of war and international humanitarian law offer protection to civilians and other non-combatant by restricting the means and methods of warfare. These laws are a part of Geneva Convention of 1949, the first additional protocol of Geneva Convention 1977, on the rules of customary international humanitarian law. Though Russia is a party to Geneva Convention, other international and regional human rights treaties, and International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, and European Convention on Human Rights, for instance, Moscow does not appear to be playing by the book. The country's forces executed 60 civilians in Chechnya in 2000. United Nations Security Council to recognize 1995 Srebrenica massacre of 8,000 Muslims by Bosnian Serbs as a genocide. In Ukraine, Russian missiles, artillery shellings, and airstrikes have hit hospitals, schools, nurseries, and residential buildings, violating Article 8 of the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court of 1998, and they resulted in more than 1,600 deaths and injuries to more than 2,000 people. Allegation that Russian forces. It is no surprise that United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution to suspend Russia from Human Rights Council. However, a path to bringing Russia to justice is expediently difficult. International Criminal Court prosecutes individuals accused of war crimes and genocide, but the ICC lacks an enforcement body like police force and relies on cooperation between the member countries to make arrest and extradition. But Russia, like US and India, is not an ICC member country. The country has no jurisdiction over Moscow. Similarly, International Court of Justice will enable to hold Russian accountable because of Moscow's veto power in United Nations Security Council. In fact, since the war started, European Union has paid Russia euro 35 billion for energy imports. Revenue from oil and gas exports account for 39% of Russian federal budget revenue. Russia is Europe's key supplier of natural gas and crude oil. It accounts for 45% and 27% respectively of the region's requirement of the two commodities. Their dependence gives Putin a huge bargaining chip. Russia is being helped by Switzerland, the world's largest commodity trading hub. Russian oil gas, Switzerland is not required to impose sanctions under its Federal Embargo Act. The report shows that Swiss commodity traders were the largest buyers of Russian oil in February, March, and approximately 4 million Swiss franc flow daily into Russia from Switzerland as a result of this oil and gas trade. It is the only money that flows to Switzerland. The raw materials never touch Swiss territory. To an extent, it is managed to find buyers like India and China for its oil at a discounted price. However, it is unlikely that both the countries will ditch their Middle East suppliers completely. So, if Europe drops it as supplier, Russia will find it exceedingly difficult to find replacement. With its rising inflation and economic hardship looming over Russian citizens, the possibility of regime change in Moscow cannot be ruled out. Next article is books beyond the booker. What is it? Writers in Indian language deserve recognition on their own terms. Geetanjali Shri, Hindi novel, Red Samadhi, translated into English as Tomb of Sand by Daisy Rockwell, has been shortlisted for International Booker Prize. It is not a culture that discusses writing or a writer for their own merit unless validated by foreign award nomination or an award of some kind. It is also paradox perhaps that despite our linguistic diversity, we are unwittingly urged to believe that the only way to interact with the various literatures of India is through English, which is a colonial attitude. Remaining Ukrainian troops in Mariupol hold on as Russian demands surrender. That shattered port city of Mariupol appeared on the brink of falling of the Russian on Sunday after 7 weeks under siege in what would make Moscow a crucial success following its failure to storm the Ukrainian capital and sinking of the Black Sea flagship. Taking Mariupol would represent Russia's first major capture in the nearly 2-month-old war that, according to many experts, the Kremlin expected to last just a few days. If it succeeds in capturing Mariupol, Russia will get a significant boost in its bid to control Ukrainian's southeast coast, have a land bridge to Crimea, and free up forces to concentrate on a pivotal battle on Donbass in eastern Ukraine. Next article is clashes erupt again near Jerusalem holy site. Sunday entered Al-Aqsa Mosque compounded in Jerusalem Old City to secure the way for Jewish visitors to the flashpoint holy site. The hilltop compound housing the mosque is the third holiest site in Islam, while it is the holiest place for Jews, who refer it as a temple mount. Competing claims to the site have sparked violence. That's all. Before that, let us see one more article, that is what is mean by hemophilia. Why does it affects men more than women? Hemophilia, it is a medical condition that severely reduces the ability of the blood to clot. Even a minor injury can cause severe bleeding. It is mostly an inherited condition and makes male much more frequently than female. The sex of an individual is determined by a pair of sex chromosomes, XX for females and XY for males that we know. When an X chromosomes each from the mother and the father are paired, the offspring is XX, that is female. When the X chromosome from mother pairs with the father's Y chromosome, the offspring is a male, that is XY. Hemophilia is caused by a defect in X chromosome. If a girl has one defective chromosome and her other X chromosome can compensate for it, she will not suffer from the condition, but will be a carrier. Only if both her X chromosomes are defective, she will suffer from hemophilia. But if a boy is born with a defective X chromosome, he does not have the second to compensate, will suffer from hemophilia. That is why hemophilia hemophilia is more common among men. Royal disease. British Queen Victoria is the world's most widely known carrier of hemophilia. For her, the condition spread among a number of European royal families, which is why hemophilia was once known as royal disease. Victoria passed a defective X chromosome sum to the 3 of her children. Next article that we are moving into is related to UK sending an asylum seeker to Rwanda. United Kingdom has signed a deal with Rwanda to send some asylum seekers to East Central African nation, a move that according to Prime Minister Boris Johnson. What is the plan? Essentially, people who have arrived in Britain since January 1 as a stockaway in trucks or boats can be flown 6,400 kilometers to landlocked African country, possibly for the good. What is parboiled rice and why center wants to stop purchasing it? Let us see in detail. What is parboiled rice? Dictionary meaning of parboiled is partly cooked by boiling. This expression parboiled rice refers to rice that being partially boiled at a paddy stage before milling. Parboiling of rice is not a new practice as followed in India since ancient times. However, there is no specific definition of parboiled rice of Food Corporation of India. The Paddy Processing Research Center Tanjavur follows a method known as chromate soaking process. It uses chromate, a family of salt in which anion contains both chromium and oxygen, which removes the odor from the wet rice. All processes generally involve the 3 stages: soaking, steaming, drying. After passing through these stages, the paddy goes for milling. What are the benefits? There are several benefits. For example, parboiling makes rice tougher. This induces a chance of the rice kernel breaking during milling. Parboiling also increases nutrient value of the rice. Third, parboiled rice has the highest resistance to insect and fungi. However, parboiling comes with some disadvantage too. The rice becomes darker and may smell unpleasant due to the prolonged soaking. Besides setting up of parboiled rice milling and unit requires higher investment than a raw milling units. 40 lakh metric tons as April 1, 2022 of this highest stock is in Telangana. In the last few years, the production is in parboiled rice consuming states Jharkhand, Kerala, Tamil Nadu is increased, resulting in less movements to deficiency. Earlier, Food Corporation of India used to procure the parboiled rice from states of Telangana to supply to these states. That's all. If you like the video, please do share, like, comment and subscribe. Thank you.